I'll start recording. So this is the first part of lesson 4 for our Essential Math students. Can everybody take out your notes booklet for lesson 4? And we're going to talk about, again, we were just talking about our theme today, ain't nothing in this world for free. I have a niece who, her and her husband are in the process right now of buying their first house. They have a couple kids now. They've been living in three kids now, and they've been living in a townhouse, and they need the room. They're buying a house, and they are just stunned at how much besides a down payment they have to make the purchase they need. We call that money you need to have besides your down payment your closing costs, also known as additional costs. And we're going to look kind of at those in depth this class. So put your phones away, and we are going to encourage as much participation as we can. You could close the door for us there. Thank you very much. Notice the first thing it says, that closing costs can run from 1.5% to 2% of the purchase price. Now, we've been keeping the numbers kind of small on a lot of our math examples here, but in the real world, houses nowadays, $500,000, $800,000, maybe $1 million for a house. What's 2% of $1 million? Okay, take a zero off the million. That's 100,000. Take another zero off, that's 1%. 10,000. So 2% would be 20 grand. So in addition to your down payment, you'd need another $20,000 if your closing costs were 2%. So where the heck is all this money going? Well, first of all, how do we know that the house is worth what the person selling it to you says it is? Obviously, you might look around and see that there's a market. You maybe look at real estate news or go online and try to see what other houses in the neighborhood are worth. But at the end of the day, somebody kind of has to approve what the price is. And you'd think, well, isn't the bank going to take care of that? Because they're the ones selling me a mortgage. Yeah, but the bank, it's in their best interest for the price to be as high as possible. How do we know we can trust them? Remember, that was the theme to some previous lessons. Banks aren't our friends. So usually there's a third party involved. Usually there is an appraiser. The appraiser is usually a real estate agent, somebody who's in the real estate world who knows how much houses really are worth. And very often they appraise the house, and the person buying the house is on the hook for that appraisal fee. So this is, to put this into our notes, this is a fee paid to determine if a house price is fair value given condition of house and maybe I should say state of the market. And usually, this is done by a realtor. And again, if you need to define what realtor is, that's just somebody who's been licensed to sell homes, who can also possibly appraise what their value is. So it's done by a realtor generally. And usually the bank has to hire this person. Some banks will have one person who does that in-house, like in their actual branch, and they'll may ask you, hey, we're going to do an appraisal fee. Is it okay if we use our own realtor? And you can say yes or no to that, depending on how much you trust your bank. But it's usually the bank that hires that person, but the cost of that person is transferred to the person buying the house. That's you. So expect, I just looked this up actually, expect between $350 to $550 to have somebody use their expertise to determine what the price of a house should be. That's a lot of money right off the bat, and that's one of our smaller closing costs. All right, so that's the appraisal fee. Next, inspection costs. Well, wait a minute. Isn't the person who appraises my house going to be the one who inspects it? Nope. That's a different license. And inspection is done by a licensed, did I spell licensed right? I think so. Licensed home inspector. And licensed home inspectors are usually an independent company. There's a couple in the city. The one that you always see, they drive around in a little car with an owl, like a plastic owl on top, owl home inspections. I don't know if you've seen that vehicle bopping around. But that's a house inspector. They've been licensed by the government. And what are they doing? Well, they are looking to see, they are going to let you know, if you're the buyer, of any damages or construction issues. And these guys are licensed and certified by the government. It's like, well, can I save this money and just get my Uncle Stanley to come and inspect the house? He's really handy. He fixes lots of things, and he's smart. No, sorry. If we all just let our Uncle Stanleys do it, then who's responsible when there really is something wrong that Uncle Stanley didn't really actually know about, right? There has to be some sort of accountability in the process, right? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, licensed people got to do this. And usually this is somewhere between $300 to $500. And there might be people going, oh, well, it's okay. I'm buying a brand new house. They just built it in a brand new neighborhood. Don't need an inspection on that. Actually, the opposite is true. And that seems kind of counterintuitive. It's like, well, if it's a brand new house, what should be wrong with it? Well, that's often where problems start. There was some sort of construction issue. Maybe when they poured the basement, they didn't have a good mixture on the cement, and so you're going to get, your basement floor is going to crack and have leaks. Maybe they put the roof on and they didn't tack down the shingles with the right nails. Like, all kinds of little things can be wrong in construction. Whereas a house somebody's living in right now, well, they'd probably know that there's something wrong with it, right? So, I mean, you still get every house inspected before a mortgage happens. Banks will insist on it. But they're actually most important in brand new houses, which, again, seems a little counterintuitive. Very often people go, oh, I can avoid this charge because I'm buying a brand new house. Oh, that's a bad idea. Brand new houses can be the ones that need the most work before it's ready to be moved in. And these guys, they are licensed, and they actually have some authority. If they are doing a house inspection and they find that, holy cow, the electrical system in this house is an act of terrorism. This house could burn down. Actually, my dad was an electrician. He actually said that once. He was helping somebody with a garage, and he said, I think the wiring in this garage is an act of terrorism. This garage could burst into flames at any moment. A house inspector, an actual licensed one, can actually have the building, they'll go to the city and go through the proper channels and have a building condemned so that, people can't live in it because it's dangerous, right? People could die. So there's some seriousness to the actual inspection thing. They have some authority, these guys. But in terms of what it costs you, math-wise, $300 to $500, depending. Now this one's small, and it's actually kind of only you don't hear about it very often. Mortgage applications are generally free when you go through a bank. The bank isn't going to charge you to apply for a mortgage, especially if it's your bank. If you're going to a bank that you don't do business with, like say, for example, I've been banking with, I bank with TD. So if I'm banking with TD and I'm going for my next mortgage and I go, maybe I could get a better mortgage through Bank of Montreal, and I go to them, and I'm not their customer. So if I apply for a mortgage, somebody who works at that bank had to actually put in some time and some paperwork. I guess they could charge me a fee. They probably wouldn't. But you know who will charge you this fee is, we talked about these guys a few days ago. This is usually only charged by mortgage brokers. As a fee to cover, I could say administrational costs, but let's call it what it is. Paperwork costs. That's really what it is, right? Right? A mortgage broker is a business, and usually they don't charge you anything because they get a commission on the mortgage that they've arranged for you to get from whatever lender, whatever bank they've managed to find for you. But if they had to go to several places, each place they went to, they probably had to file some paperwork, send a letter, somebody had to look at it, so they got charged a fee, and they could pass that fee on to you, and that would be your mortgage application fee. Sometimes this is also called a loan origination fee. I won't bother even writing that down, but mortgages don't usually get charged loan origination fees, because again, if you're getting a mortgage through a bank, don't worry, they're getting lots of money from you through the actual interest that you're paying. But say, for example, you wanted just a personal loan, right? You want just a loan to start a business or something like that. That's where a loan application fee or a loan origination fee would come in. So these kinds of fees are usually on loans that aren't mortgages. The only time you ever hear about somebody paying for it for a mortgage is, again, if there's a mortgage broker involved and they had to go to like several places, and you have to pay them for their time, because, you know, time is money. And again, this is usually a cheap one, usually less than 200 bucks. And again, only if you went through a mortgage broker. Guys who go through banks generally don't pay this one. All right, property survey. Let's say you buy a house, you want to put up a fence. Where does it go? Well, on the yard. How do you know where your yard ends? I was having this discussion with the morning class. It's like, okay, where does your yard end? Like, I have a house, and in front of that house, we're going to draw in 3 dimensions here. And in front of that house, I have a sidewalk, and then in front of the sidewalk, I have the boulevard where the grass grows. Or, well, it doesn't really grow because I live on a main street and there's lots of salt and sand on it, so it kills the grass. But then there's the curb and, of course, the street. Where does my property end? It ends at the sidewalk. Oh, whoops, that's the curb. Curb. It ends at the sidewalk. I don't own the boulevard. Why do I mow it then? I don't own it. Oh, because there's a bylaw here in this city that if you don't mow the boulevard when you mow your yard and it gets tall and bad and there could be like field mice and ticks in it and stuff, the city will come along and mow it for you and charge you. And you have to pay it. Don't pay it, they'll fine you. So, yeah, I don't own the boulevard. So if I want to put up a fence, I actually don't own the sidewalk either. I have to put it up here. It's like, yeah, but I don't want people walking on my sidewalk. I'll put the fence there. No, I can't do that. And then on the other side of my house, let me go back to the green. This is my house. There we go. There's the wall. On the other side of my house, it's just boulevard, then street. Where does my property end? There's no sidewalk where I go, oh, there's the end of my property. Nope. That's what most people think. They go, oh, I don't have a sidewalk, so I own right up to the street. No, you don't. You own about, I think it's about 20 feet if you don't have a sidewalk there, and it varies from neighborhood to neighborhood. You know where that information is? It's in the land titles building, right? Every piece of property that has been divvied up and sold to people here in the city of Winnipeg, they have a blueprint of that property and what is owned by the homeowner and what the city owns is on that piece of paper. And could you go down and look at it? I guess you could. I don't know if people can go look at that themselves. But you know who can look at that is, of course, somebody whose job it is to work for the city. And now my screen's not working. Hold on. Why is this not moving? There we go. There we go. They are a surveyor. So property surveys, if I want to put up a fence and I don't put it in the right place, like again, if I wanted to put a fence over on this side of my house, well, if I put it here and the city goes, no, sorry, your property was further that way, they can either order me to take the fence down or they can charge me because I put a fence on city property. And what if this isn't the city? What if it's a neighbor? Oh, well then you put a fence too far into your neighbor's property because you put it, past where your property ends. You have to pay part of their property taxes now. Oh, so it is in your best interest to know where your property ends, right? So let me erase all this. Oh, that didn't work. There we go. So it's in your best interest to know where your property ends. Hang on, this didn't work. I'm going to try to make this. Let's see. Sorry, I'm having technical difficulties here. Okay, so appraisal fees, mortgage application fees. Okay, go up, go up. There. Oh, it didn't stop. There we go. Okay. Now let's see if it stays when I move the screen. Yeah, there we go. Okay, sorry about this. Having some problems here. Okay. Go back to here. And go back to my pen. There we go. So the property survey is to determine the boundaries of your property. And again, that's an important thing. And that's just one type of property survey. That's the one you do for the city. That one's usually about $100. I looked it up, 100 plus GST. Sometimes they give you, sometimes they'll say it's less if it's like not a big job for them. That's just to determine the property boundaries. What if you buy a house and you got a nice big yard and you go, I want to put in a pool? Now what do you got to think about? Well, you're about to dig a big hole in the ground, so what do you got to worry about?
Gas lines,
Where are your gas lines? So as in your natural gas coming to your house to heat your house. Where is the sewer line? That's, clean water in, dirty water out. And in some neighborhoods, not many here in Winnipeg, but in some neighborhoods, the electrical's underground. Most of us, it's like on the telephone pole. You can see the wires coming above your house. But there's a few neighborhoods where it's below ground. Your job before you dig a pool is to know where all that is so that you don't, blow somebody up. So you could also determine locations of your gas, sewer, and in some cases, electrical. And if you needed to do all three, that's actually three different bodies. Well, I think actually gas and electrical could both be hydro, right? Because you pay your hydro bill, that's gas. They do both. But sewer is the city. So the guy who does the boundary one might be a different guy than the guy for the city who does the sewer one. So you might be paying the city twice to do your property survey. And you might be paying Manitoba Hydro to do the gas and electrical one. This one's usually more money. This one can be anywhere from $100 to, I heard, as much as $600. Whoa, why so much? Well, it depends on the size of the property, right? If it's just a little yard in the middle of a busy street, probably take them 5 minutes. So they say, yep, they'll put a little, you ever see them? They'll put a little flag in the ground, a little hydro, like there. That's where your hydro line is. Don't dig it. Call before you dig, right? That you see those ads all the time. And but what if you have like a very large yard? Like it could take them hours to figure it out. So yeah, it could be like $600 touch just to have your property surveyed so that when you're digging or doing some construction, you're not hitting a gas line, which would be very, very bad. Explosions happen and people die. So this has to be done. What were you going to say? That's an excellent question, and I don't know. I mean, I'd imagine they have a blueprint from when the neighborhood was built. Again, land titles building should have that. But then I would assume they must use some sort of equipment. I would suspect sonar to push into the ground, and when it bounces back, they know they've hit a line or a pipe. That's a good question, though. I'm not 100% sure. All I know is when I come back home, there's little flags. And and the last time there were little flags in my yard, I wasn't the one who called for the survey. So obviously, you know what that means. And that means the city has to do some work, right? But luckily, winter came. Yes. So I don't have to deal with it till next spring because they don't. Obviously, it wasn't important enough. Wasn't important enough to dig up during the winter. So the flags are now all buried under the snow in my yard. But anyway, that's surveying. That could run you $600. Eek. Now we had this conversation already. What's the absolute minimum you can have for a down payment for it to be legal for you to get a mortgage? 5%. But if you don't have blank, they'll make you pay more insurance to insure the mortgage. What's the blank? 20%. Good memory. So that's what we call a high ratio mortgage. You didn't have at least 20% of your house price as your down purchase. So if that happens, let's write it this way. If down payment, are you okay with math symbols, is less than 20% of the price of the house, the CHMC, Canadian Home and Mortgage Corporation, Canadian Housing and Mortgage Corporation, will charge you an insurance premium. And unlike the previous ones where I was kind of estimating the cost for you, this one can vary too much to bother. Oh, by the way, somebody asked this morning, what does premium mean? Is it like when I buy gas, that's the really good gas, the premium? No. Premium, for whatever reason, is just what insurance companies call their fee. Like your payment is your premium. I don't know why they use the word premium. They just do. It sounds fancy. Ooh, the premium. It's just how much you pay. So, yeah, exactly. So anyway, where was I going with this? Oh yeah, I can't really come up with a number and say, oh, it's going to be about this because it totally depends. If you're buying like a $500,000 house and you were barely able to scrape together 5% of that, they're going to charge you a lot more than if it was a $250,000 house. So it really kind of depends on how big this ratio is between your house cost divided by your down payment. If that ratio is high, the higher it is, the more insurance they're going to want to charge you. And this protects banks from people who default on mortgages. And of course, I know it's like, oh, what, we feel sorry for the bank, we got to protect them. Well, obviously, if banks do go under, if they go out of business, that directly harms a lot of people. And we had this conversation. That is basically how the 2008 market crash happened. That's how the world economy grinded to a halt because far too many people had far too much bad debt. And a mortgage you can't afford is a good example of a bad debt. So anyway, this is varies. Okay? And actually, there's a website for this. I was going to show you the WOWA website. Let me just find it on here. WOWA. WOWA. Is it .ca? I think it's .ca. There we go. This is a good site if you want to just know what the prime lending rate is or anything like that. If it ever comes up, there you are. So there's today's prime rate, for example. And if you want to look for things like taxes, so let's see, income tax calculator and all calculators and tools. Oh, there, you can calculate land transfer tax based on what province you're in. We're going to be doing that by hand soon enough. And one of the, there it is, mortgage rates and guides, mortgage tools. Under mortgage tools, there it is, your CMHC insurance calculator. So if you're sitting at home going, gee, I think we'd like to buy this. Oh, look at that. They start us off with a $500,000 house in Manitoba. And I didn't have a 15% down payment. I only had, like again, let's say I had the bare minimum. 5% down payments. Enter. Woo. $19,000. Now, and there's tax on that. We'll talk about that in a minute. And so now I'm going to say to that, well, okay, why is that in my closing costs? Because very often your bank will say, okay, you're going to have to get this insurance, but we'll add it to your mortgage. So you don't have to try to come up with $19,000. So it's weird. It's like I'm paying for insurance on my mortgage with my mortgage. But if they think you've got a good job, you've got a good credit rating, you've been a customer for years, and we trust you, they can make that offer. Okay? That's a risk they're taking. If, however, you just happen to, say you had more, you could, again, my niece, I think, is actually looking at taking out a loan to cover her closing costs, and I'm sure one of them is this whatever amount she has to pay for that insurance premium. If you manage to find the cash somewhere else, most people, or a lot of people, will just pay this as like a lump payment. Boom, paid it. I don't have to worry about a little bit more on my mortgage for this insurance every month. So that's why we kind of include it in the closing costs. A lot of people buying less houses than $500,000 and have bigger down payments aren't paying nearly that. So again, I could go back to that site and let's do something a little smaller. Let's say that we were, or did I close it? Oh no, there. Let's say it wasn't a high $500,000 house. Let's say it was half that. So $25 house. Bargain. There we go. Let's say it was that. Notice now we're looking at $9,000. And let's say I had more of a down payment. Say I was up to that 15% down payment. Now it's only $5,000. Chances are if I had a $37,000 down payment saved up, I could probably find a way to get enough there that I wouldn't have to pay that every month. So that's why most people don't have it as like a monthly cost. They have it as a cost upfront when they're buying their house. Insurance on the mortgage. Okay, that's different than home insurance. Why do I have to insure my house? I'm just going to roll the dice and risk that nothing happens to it that's bad. Nope, sorry. That is not allowed. In Canada, you are required to have home insurance to get a mortgage. Once your mortgage is paid, if you ever actually pay off your mortgage, I'll probably be paying mine till I die. But if you ever actually, come on, erase. I can't seem to fix this. Why is this not working? It's like my eraser isn't working for some reason. Let me go back to this page. Sometimes when I go to the, okay. All kinds of weirdness happening with my laptop here. I don't know. I don't know if it's a Microsoft issue or what. All right, how about this? Can we do that? All right, let me just, maybe if I, okay, I'm just going to pause my recording for a sec and see if I can get this thing to behave. Close that window. Okay, we seem to be back to normal. Sorry for the technical issues. All right, so like I said, it is required to have home insurance to get a mortgage in Canada. Now, once you've paid your mortgage off, if you get to a point in your life where you're done your mortgage, you own the house completely, you don't owe the bank anything for what it cost you to buy the house, that's your call. You don't have to have insurance if you don't want to, but you'd have to be kind of insane. House insurance is really important. All it takes is one bad storm and you could be completely out of a house if you don't have insurance. Now, why do they make you have it when you buy a house? Like, why when you're paying a mortgage? Well, again, that way there is some sort of way to recoup the loss for both the bank and for the person who owns the house if something terrible happens. Also, let's say that you're still in the process. Say you're buying a house that needs some work done and you haven't even moved in yet. Well, there's people working on your house to fix it up before you live in it, before you move in. What if somebody gets hurt while they're working on your house? Who's responsible for paying for that? Well, that's one of the things house insurance covers. So that's why they won't even give you a mortgage if you haven't signed up for insurance. It's usually done the same day as you sign up for your mortgage. Okay, we're not going to talk about the cost for home insurance for right now because that's actually going to happen in lesson 5. So tomorrow we'll finish lesson 4. Monday we'll finish lesson 4, and then lesson 5 will be the next one where we do lots of insurance stuff. And some of the stuff they actually say in the curriculum about insurance is wrong, so we'll talk about that too. It's interesting. I think maybe just the rules have changed over the years. This is what we're going to do on Monday as well. Here's land transfer tax. Pretty much everybody has to pay a land transfer tax with a few exceptions. And you pay it once, that's why it's part of your closing costs. And what's interesting is it's sort of a scale on how you pay it. If you take a look at the way this works, I have a nice analogy way of explaining this that we'll do on Monday. Okay, so we'll skip that one for now. Move on to the next page. Okay, think about this. Let's say I buy a house from you, but you've already paid your property taxes for the whole year. Maybe you've even paid some utilities towards the end of the month, and this is now today's the first of the month. So in that case, the buyer has to pay back the seller for portions of property taxes or utility payments. Remember, utilities includes everything, gas, water, whatever. Upon possession. Right? So when I take over the house from you, I have to make sure you've been reimbursed for the things you already paid for now that it's my house, not yours. Now, do you have to chase me around yourself? Like, yeah, hey, calling about last month when you bought a house from me, you still haven't paid me back for my housing taxes, call me back, beep. No, that's not how it works. Good thing, because you never know. I could be a deadbeat. Chasing me around for that payment? Nah. The bank deals with all this, right? But the bank itself, they're not in the utilities business. Somebody has to kind of make sure all the people who need to get paid what they're supposed to. Guess what kind of people are very good at that? It's kind of what they do for a living. Loan sharks. Well, let's go alongside legal means. Lawyers. So I'm going to just skip this one. It's kind of small anyway, even though it's got a big, I don't know why there's so much space for that one. But here, legal fees and disbursements. This is the law. I wasn't sure until I checked it, but it actually is. When purchasing a home in Canada, the transaction must be administered by a lawyer. It is the law. And it's a good thing, too. So again, what are we talking about? First of all, I had some people this morning, what do you mean transaction? Well, okay, any exchange of goods and service for money is a transaction, right? Did you buy a coffee this morning? That was a transaction. They had coffee, you had money, they traded. Transaction. You have house, I have money, bank has more money, bank gives me money, I give you money, I get house. That's a transaction. But there's lots of other things involved. Again, look back here. Well, wait a minute. You had already paid for your property taxes for the year, and you'd paid your water bill for the next quarter. I think water bills are 4 times a year. I think it's quarterly, right? Oh, then why? Well, how do we deal with all this? How do we make sure the people who are supposed to get paid get paid? That's a lawyer's job. That's what they're good at. They're making sure the right people get paid. The word for that is disbursement. A whole bunch of money is going to come from the bank to me to pay for your house, and the lawyer makes sure it gets disbursed to the right people. And it can get more complicated than that. What if the person I'm buying the house from, what if they had used their house as collateral for a loan? Now somebody has to make sure that that loan gets paid off first before possession of the house can happen, right? Like say that they used their house in another mortgage to buy a cabin or something, or to finance buying a vehicle, or to finance a business. They had some equity in their house because they've been paying their mortgage for a few years. They used that equity as collateral on a loan. Now the purchase of the house got more complicated, and again, a lawyer has to make sure that all the I's got dotted, all the T's got crossed, and all the right people got paid. That is important. And if you don't get a lawyer involved, well, there's an old saying, if you don't pay for your lawyer up front, you end up paying a lot more for one later. So, just real quickly here, just going to pause for a sec. I don't know if you know this or not, but lawyers make a lot of money. $400 an hour is not unusual for a lawyer. So if it takes them 3 hours to figure out the paperwork involved, do the math. That's how much you're going to pay lawyers. So legal fees on buying a house are usually not that much. I looked this up, and again, so, first of all, what does the lawyer do? Well, again, disbursements, again, means that the lawyer worked out paperwork, filed papers with the right place. Oh, lawyers will take care of filing the actual deed to the house. That means the piece of paper that says, hey, this person owns the house, with the land titles building. So they'll make sure that you officially own that piece of property and the government knows that. So that's what I mean by paperwork. And so they'll prepare documents and they'll make sure everyone who is supposed to gets paid. There's rules to all this. That's what lawyers are paid for. That's why they make the big bucks. They are experts at rules. You've watched legal dramas on TV. Now that's always criminal law, but that's what it's about, right? Oh, Your Honor, back in 1743, there was this case, and they just know all these rules. They are the experts at knowing rules, and that's why they get paid a lot of money. They know more. They've forgotten more rules than we'll ever know, and they get paid a lot. In a house transaction, expect it to be somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500. Yeah, and again, the morning guys gasped when I said over $1,000. But again, I just told you, some of these guys make $300-400 an hour. So if they're paying, that means that they took care of everything they needed to in your house in like 3 hours. 3 hours of paperwork. Yeah, it's people now going, I want to be a lawyer. Are you good at memorizing 1 billion things? You going to remember that ruling back in 1774? I couldn't do it. I don't. You're talking to a guy who doesn't remember his postal code most days. So yeah, what are you gonna add?
Someone from a family of lawyers, I do not recommend being a lawyer. They have the highest, rate next to dentists.
Really?
Yeah, and family law is the worst.
And well, family law is just
Family
yeah.
law is awful.
I could imagine there's just nothing sadder.
Imagine having an office next to a family lawyer, like your
Oh
bedroom next
man.
to their office. You know how hard it is to sleep at night?
Oh my
In the
word.
meetings? No.
So I'm sure my microphone didn't pick up most of that, but
Don't
we
be a
have
lawyer.
somebody trying to tell us no matter how much it sounds like you make a lot of money, you might not want to be a lawyer.
It's not worth
Okay,
it.
it's not worth it. Okay.
Diesel technician pays good.
Yeah, that's right. It's
Starting pay for an apprentice, 31 an hour.
starting pay. You got Red River ticket for that though, right? Diesel mechanics.
That's as an apprentice. When you have your ticket, it's 41 an hour to start.
That's nice. 41 bucks an hour so that you don't have to be a lawyer. Oh, okay. Sounds good. All right. Anyway, I'm going to just really kind of almost skip over this one. Interest adjustments is minor. I'll just say really quick. It's when you paying for portions of months or weeks that a home needs to be insured. See, when you buy insurance, and especially say if you're financing that insurance, you don't pay it in a lump sum, you pay it every month. Well, there's going to be interest built into that. And again, so if you've paid your insurance for the year and then I take over the house from you, well, okay, your insurance company will give you back some of your money because you paid for insurance for a year and you don't own the house for a whole year, but I am responsible as the person who bought the house from you for paying the interest on that insurance. It's usually minor. Again, it's usually less than 200 bucks, but it does kind of count. It is something that will be on the bill of your closing costs when you get a mortgage from the bank. And again, the lawyer will make sure that figure out exactly who needs to get paid what. There can be some other things too. Again, what if I don't pay my property taxes as one bill? Like I get that bill in like August and you could pay the whole thing, boom, but most people don't. Most people pay it on a monthly schedule. I have mine added to my mortgage, so the bank just collects it for me and pays the city. So again, if I sell my house tomorrow, I'm paid up with my property taxes for the year. Because I'm on the monthly plan, a few bucks is going to be interest to the city. So you as the person buying my house are going to be responsible for that. So little things. There is little interest adjustments involved in buying a house. You would be seeing that. It's minor. Here's one that I found. This one's fun when I was looking this up. This is really interesting. Good thing we live in Manitoba. Is there sales tax on a house? If I buy a house tomorrow, am I paying GST, PST? What do you think? Here's the story. On purchases of new houses less than $35 or $350,000, GST is 5%, and there's an actual 36% rebate if you have to pay that. At your next income tax, you'd get 36% of that rebated to you. Now, can I point out to you, though, where in the city we're living in, anybody watching this video, we are here in Winnipeg, Canada, God's country. Inside joke. This place is a tough place to live sometimes. Here in Winnipeg, do you think you could find a brand new house for less than $350,000? I kind of doubt it. So this isn't something that gets paid a lot. You know what you could see paid, though, is you could see a new piece of property. And this is where somebody this morning said, how would you have new property? Is the earth expanding? Suddenly we have new property, new mass, new area? No. Here's what I mean. Like, say, for example, yeah, property changed. Suddenly there was one big piece of property that was owned by somebody. Maybe it was crown land that the government decided, we don't want to take care of this anymore. We'll sell it. People can buy it and develop it and sell houses on it. That's new property. So even if you buy a piece of property that doesn't have a house on it yet, that might end up being less than $350,000, and you're going to pay 5% GST on that. That's Manitoba. I found out that we have a couple of provinces, BC's one of them, where it doesn't matter how expensive your house is. 5% GST, and it doesn't have to be new. Yikes. Now, their land transfer tax is lower than ours, but this, imagine again, $1 million home. What's 5% of $1 million? $50,000 in taxes. Boom. Could you imagine? Eek. Goodness, thanks, we live here in Manitoba. Now, that's about all I need to say on sales tax. Oh, there's one other sales tax you might have on your bill. You'd have PST if you had to get that CHMC insurance, which again, you only need if you have less than 20% for a down payment. So that's the only two taxes to the government that there might be when it comes to sales. This doesn't happen very often, and this is only if you have to get that insurance because you have less than 20% for your down payment. Okay, but the government will get you. We do have land transfer tax. We'll talk about that one tomorrow. A couple more. I'm real lucky. I've moved. I moved in terms of how many times I moved. I got my first job teaching right out of university, so I moved to an apartment there. After a few months in the apartment, a house came up that we liked. We decided, we're going to stay here a few years, so we bought a house. We moved, so that's 2 moves. And then we were in that house for 4 years, and we sold it because I thought I was moving out of that small town. But turns out they wouldn't let me out of my contract, so I ended up renting. So I moved to a house that I was renting. And then I moved back to Winnipeg into a townhouse, and we stayed there for a year, and then I bought a house. Moved 6 times in 5 years. So man, I am an expert at packing a truck. But not one of those times did I actually have to hire a moving company. It was always just I rented a truck, and then I got friends, family to help. And it was really cute. The first time, I'm a university student. I tell my parents I'm getting married and moving to Lynn Lake to start teaching. In the same sentence. That was fun. And then I rented this little moving truck, and it wasn't a very big truck. And I'm living in my parents' basement. I don't even have really furniture and stuff yet. So I rent this truck, and I had so little stuff in it that I actually had to take 2x4s and hammer them to the ceiling and floor of the truck just to keep my stuff from flying around back there. But then 5 years later, when I moved back to Winnipeg after having a house, it was probably the exact same truck. It might have been the very same truck that I rented to move back. I was full right to the back door. In 5 years, I gained furniture and baby furniture and just stuff. Life is stuff. You accumulate stuff in your life. There's probably people sitting there, no, I'm like that Japanese lady on the Home and Garden channel. If it does not spark joy, I throw it out. Good for you. I'm a little closer to the hoarder side of things. So I accumulate stuff. And I could only imagine if I had to move now. 20-something years of stuff in the house I'm in, if I had to move that to another house, I would have no choice but to hire professionals. I was telling you this morning in the morning class, there's one of the students who their family just went through a move, and it was $8,000, he said, to pay for the movers and the truck. But that's a distance. They moved like city to city, Calgary to here. I don't know what it'd be if you had to move further, more. But just in the city here, I think you could do it for under $1,000. You could hire the truck and the guys to carry everything out of your house and put it in your new house. I think it's about $1,000. So in terms of how much moving expenses are, well, greatly varies. I have no idea where you'd go with that. Again, I guess the lowest you could go is probably a couple $100. Rent a truck for the day and move across town. All the way up to thousands, because you're moving to Australia and you have a whole house full of stuff. I could only imagine. Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. Could be anything. Obviously, the important part is to understand what it depends on. It depends on how much stuff, amount of stuff, and distance you're moving it. Right? Moving across town can be done relatively cheaply even if you hire a moving company, but moving across the country, you're in the thousands of dollars. Okay? So there we go. I don't know. I can't give you a number for that one. Now, there's some service charges. Honestly, this one should probably go down here, I would think. But maybe not. I don't know. I guess it depends on the situation for your house. What they mean by service charges is they mean the cost to connect your gas, your water, your electrical, your electricity. And again, that's more of a new house cost, right? You have to pay each of those companies, right? And again, 2 of them are hydro, but they might be different guy for the gas than the electricity. And you have to have them come and flip the switch from the city's grid to turn on the water. And I think some of you might even have that little spout on your yard where the water gets turned on. That's a special little nut that you're not supposed to own, and you can't turn it on and off yourself. You have to pay to have that done. It's a service fee. It's usually about $60. You shouldn't have to pay this if there was somebody living in your house before you took it over. They don't shut the water off because the house changes hands. If the house was going to stay empty for a few weeks, they probably would. So maybe that's why it's up here. So this is generally only for new or vacant homes. Right? If I buy your house from you and you move out today and I move in tomorrow, the city wasn't going to shut off the power and shut off the water and shut off the gas. But if the house was sitting empty for a few weeks, chances are they would. And then when I move in, I have to pay to get them to turn all that stuff back on. That's the service charge, I think, that they're talking about. Okay? Now, if you're buying a brand new home, there's 3 things that you would never have to worry about in a regular home. Namely, there's like immediate repairs, anything the home inspection, anything the home inspector said was absolutely necessary is necessary. Is it 2 C's and 2 S's? I can't remember. Necessary right now, as in, again, like my little story about my dad checking out the neighbor's garage and saying that this garage could catch fire tomorrow. The wiring's terrible. You probably see the commercials for older houses that still have aluminum wiring. Yeah, that's something you should deal with if you have an older house. Knob and tube wiring. Yeah, you should get rid of that stuff. I have seen that stuff just go. Right? People just trying to change a fuse, and all of a sudden it goes poof. It's like, whoa! Did I do a magic trick? What happened here? So yeah, that stuff is dangerous. Now, why did they ever use it? Well, there was a time in the 60s especially where copper was getting really expensive and aluminum was just dirt cheap. So, I mean, copper is still more expensive than aluminum, but it's not worth the risk of having aluminum wiring because that stuff does get warmer. Electricity goes through copper with very, very little heat. That little strip of wax around wires is plenty enough to keep anything from getting warm because of electricity going through. But aluminum, that's not true. Aluminum does get pretty hot. So that's why the aluminum wiring has thicker wax around it, but all it takes is, a little mouse to chew on it, or you put a nail in your wall because you're going to hang up a picture and you accidentally scrape the wax on the aluminum wiring. Poof! So who notices stuff like that would be, again, that'd be your home inspector. So anything sorry?
Have people never heard of stud finders?
Do stud finders find wires all the time? Oddly enough, they're more likely to find copper ones. Aluminum, stud finders don't find aluminum that easily.
Those AC detector things,
Oh, I don't have one of those. But anyway, yeah, you're right. You should actually, anytime you put a nail into your wall, you should check to see if there's anything behind it with a stud finder. But anyway, whatever the inspector says, hey, fix this now or it's dangerous, that has to be done. And that tends to be a new home thing. Finally then, last couple things, appliances and decorating costs. Well, appliances. Obviously, when you buy a brand new house, it doesn't come with appliances. And you're probably thinking, oh, you mean like the stuff in my kitchen. Whoa, there's 2 very big appliances that you got to worry about. Bigger. How about your furnace and your hot water heater? Yeah. Yeah, okay, but that means that you bought your house from a house developing like Qualico or something, and that was part of what they put in the house. They don't have to, right? If I hire you to build me a house, so you're not putting appliances in it, that's my job. So a brand new house, you have to worry about, hey, do you got a furnace and a hot water tank? After that, it's the big 5. Everybody knows the big 5? Stove, fridge. Oh no, AC is an option. I grew up without AC. When my dad put AC in the house when he retired? It's like, oh man, I got to be home every day. I better get AC in here. Actually, he got a big cash out when he retired because he worked for Winnipeg Hydro, and they had a thing where if you didn't use your sick days and you banked them, when you retired, they would pay you for those sick days, which was awesome. I wish my job did that. I must have 100 and something sick days. But no, that was pretty cool. So I think he used his sick day payout to buy us an air conditioner. But yeah, I noticed it's like, oh, we don't need air conditioning. Yeah, because you're working all day. So that's not one of the big 5. I'll put it down here. AC. That's a minor appliance. Fridge, stove, washer, dryer. And you know what else is considered one of the big 5? And the reason they're called the big 5 is because of how much electricity they use. Your dishwasher is part of the big 5. Dishwashers use a lot of water too. Oddly though, less than if you filled the sink every time you wash dishes, right? So they are more efficient than filling a sink. But these are your big energy users. And then, of course, most people also have, if they have a bigger house especially, they have a stand-up freezer. But you can get, you can get along without that as long as your fridge has a decent-sized freezer. You can go to the store every day. Again, I don't think my dad got a stand-up freezer for our house till I was, 10 or 11, and before that it was just what? The stores down the street. Why do we need a big freezer? And then when we started fishing a lot and stuff, it's like, we need a freezer.
I've got this entire half a deer sitting in my garage that I need to.
Yeah, exactly. Once you start, stockpiling meat and stuff, you need a freezer. I think that's about it for appliances. And then, of course, decorating costs. If you buy a brand new house, you got to put paint on the walls. You might want to pay somebody to paint if you don't like painting yourself. I hate painting. I'm not bad at it, but I hate it. And curtains or blinds, whichever. And you don't want to just decorate the inside of your house. Maybe you want to decorate the outside. That's called landscaping. So before you move into your brand new house, you might want to make the outside look pretty too. All these things cost money. Again, what was our theme today? Ain't nothing in this world for free. Okay, I'll stop the video there. Anybody who needed help sleeping tonight, hopefully this video was helpful for you.